The Mini Match Pod. Hello guys and welcome to this week's Mini Match Pod. How are we all doing this week? I hope we're having a good week so far. Another 2-game week to talk about. So we've got the Gillingham game to look back over, and we'll look ahead to the game on Saturday against Crewe Alexandra. And we're going to be joined by a very special guest. It's going to be Stuart from the Railwaymen podcast. So it'll be a first for us on the podcast to have an opposition fan on and their views, but we'll see how it goes. See what you think of it. Let me know if you enjoy having that view from the other side of the ground, if we were allowed in the stadium. Just let me know what you think of that. Obviously, ITFC Analytics has been absolutely brilliant so far this season in helping us to break down oppositions and just give us a good preview. He is always going to still be involved. He's just had a little bit of a busy time of late, and myself as well. Work's getting busier as well, so I'll try and deliver as consistent content as I can. There may be a few weeks where we have to speed through it quicker than we usually do, but we'll always try and get both episodes out for you if deemed fit. There may be weeks where we don't need to do a mini match pod, but we'll cover that when we get to it. So we'll start off with the Gillingham game before we chat to Stuart about Crewe Alexandra. So how did we get on against Gillingham? So, final score, Ipswich Town 1, Gillingham 0. And yes, we cannot lose at Portman Road, seemingly. So, we'll go through the game as we always do. So, Town made 3 changes from Saturday's defeat to Lincoln City. Mark McGuinness made his senior debut in the Football League. Obviously, he's played in the EFL Trophy, but that doesn't really count. Also came back, he was joined by Luke Wolfenden. They replaced both Toto Enciala and James Wilson at the heart of the Ipswich defence. Toto dropped onto the bench and Wilson wasn't in the squad at all, but I don't know whether perhaps he was exposed to Matt Gill or Paul Lambert with the COVID test, or whether it was an injury or an illness. We will wait to find out. There was a little bit of uncertainty around that, unless I've missed it. Freddie Sears also was brought back into the fold, replacing the suspended John Noland, and it looked like we're changing shape, really. Very attacking midfield. If you were going to say it was our 4-3-3, the midfield 3 would have been Andre Dazelle, Teddy Bishop and Jack Lancaster, but I think we dropped Teddy Bishop alongside Andre Dazelle to play the sort of box-to-box role next to Andre, who's still going to sit a little bit deeper in his pivot role, and then we'll push Jack Lancaster a little bit further forward and trying to get up and support Ollie Hawkins up front. Gillingham line up with 2 former Town loanies in their attack, so Jordan Graham and Dominic Samuel start alongside John Akinde up front for them. Hopefully for the visitors, they were probably hoping that they could perform better than they ever did for us at Portman Road. Let's put it that way. They were very unmemorable loan signings for us, but I think they've started the season fairly well, and I think the Gillingham fans have been quite impressed with both of them when they've come in. So we'll see if they offer us a threat. It's quite an edgy start to the game. I think both sides are kind of trying to figure each other out, and we had a lot of possession as we did throughout the whole of the game, and that's sort of where our first attack came from. So Wolfenden and McGuinness obviously favoured over Wilson and Toto Enciala, and you'd say they're probably better at playing out from the back in this 4-3-3 system. If you're going to pick 2 out of our centre-back options, they'd probably be the 2 you'd go to, and we saw this quite a lot in the first half. Quite patient play at the back, trying to move the Gillingham team about a little bit to create a few openings, and they did that. Quite patient play at the back between McGuinness and Wolfenden. It goes to Ward, who changes the pace, finds Sears, who's running in behind. Really accurate long ball over the top. Sears is in, but he can't get a shot underway. And yeah, Sears was very busy in the first half. I wouldn't say the quality was there, but he was very busy. He was once again involved with an early chance. This time it stood in by Lancaster, very similar. Gets in behind, but his effort is blocked and loops over the bar for a Town corner. He then wins a free kick around 30 yards from goal, dead centre of the Gillingham goal. Dazelle steps up this time. He's having a crack at the free kick competition. And I think if the fans were in the ground, it might have caught a few people out, particularly on the co-op stand side. I think it did look like it was just drifting inside that right-hand post of the Gillingham goal, but it's just wide, unfortunately. Town do get the ball in the net in the first half. It's Freddie Sears once again involved. Yet another long ball over the top. That was kind of our best avenue from getting in behind. Sears was very good at running in behind, I thought, in the first half. Perhaps lacking almost certainly lacking the end product, sadly. This time it's Dazelle who plays him in over the top. He's running in. The keeper looks like he's coming to claim the ball quite comfortably, but Sears just nudges the defender into the keeper, and he takes a really nasty spill over the top of his centre-half, landing really hard on the ground. It is a clear foul, and the ball comes loose, and Sears just sticks it away for good measure, but it won't count, unfortunately. Next chance for Town, a deep high cross from Ward. He's in acres of space down the left. It finds a combination of Chambers and Edwards at the far post. The ball drops down into the area. There's no sort of conviction on the contact from Chambers and Edwards. I think they probably get in each other's way, along with a Gillingham defender contesting the ball. The ball kind of drops in the 6-yard box. Lancaster is able to stab the ball towards the goal, and it hits the top of the bar and just goes over. Jack Bonham, who is the Gillingham keeper, he can't continue after that collision. So I know Steve Evans was probably chomping at the bit to mention it in his post-match press conference. I was waiting for that to come up, for it to be his excuse as to why Gillingham were unfairly treated of this absolutely sickening foul, when in reality it was just an incident that could happen anywhere on the pitch. And unfortunately for Bonham, he's come off badly from it. They have to bring on Joe Walsh. He comes on and he immediately makes an error, picks the ball up outside of his area, so we get an indirect free kick. You don't see many of them nowadays, do you? I didn't really know where we were taking it from. I thought they had to be from inside the box, but that's always such a strange rule. You don't see it very often, as I just said. So yeah, so Sears is laid off by Lancaster, but he fires just wide. It's quite a poor effort. We're quite used to that from Freddie Sears. Sears again, I told you, he's involved a lot. Great turn of pace from Edwards down the right. He bursts into the box, blitzing past Medley. His cutback finds Sears, but his effort is once again blocked. Goes out for another Town corner. And yeah, I thought that was really the only action of the first half. And as you can see, Gillingham didn't have any efforts to talk about. I think they had one effort which was deflected behind for a corner very early on in the game, but other than that, it was very much backs to the walls and some last-ditch defending. Quite good last-ditch defending, I'll give them that. You know, these blocks coming in to block efforts from Town. That was really, it was all Town, you know, going in Town's favour. 75% of the possession. We had 9 attempts, but only one of them was on target. And at half-time, we were just left with this feeling where you just thought, Christ, we're going to throw this away, aren't we? I think I said on Twitter, it reminds me of those performances up at Rotherham when we were in the Championship, where we'd absolutely dominate the game, just couldn't buy a goal, and then they'd go up to the end in the last minute and score a goal, and there was no coming back from us. And you just got that feeling, and particularly with the last 2 games where we've not been particularly great, showing similar characteristics in terms of being able to create chances and getting shots underway. You just thought, is this going to happen again? And these are the types of games you can't really afford to drop points. In comparison, to Doncaster and Lincoln. Doncaster and Lincoln were very much in the game. Gillingham offered absolutely nothing. We were very poor in that first half, and you can't afford to drop points to teams who are playing so poorly, especially when you're at home and on top in the game. So yeah, I think quality over quantity is what was required in the second half. We're having shots, but they just weren't testing the Gillingham goal in any way, shape or form. And yeah, it was leaving us a little bit uneasy. And as the game went on in the second half, you still kind of got that feeling that Gillingham were going to nick this. Later it got into the game, and the longer it stayed goalless, you just thought Gillingham's chances only increased from that point on. And to be fair to them, they started the second half really well. As they have a free kick in almost the same position as us. I think it was a good run by, it might have been Samuel or Graham. One of them won the free kick. It's Graham who steps up, and he has undoubtedly won the worst free kick competition of the season. I think that even landed in the players' car park. It was that bad. It was just opposite the south stand. I think it probably cleared the little security zone that we have up there, you know, where all the commentators are. I don't know what that was from Jordan Graham, and yeah, probably the closest he's ever come to scoring at Portman Road either. I don't think he was particularly good in either of his loan spells with us, but he actually grew into the game as the game went on. I thought he actually performed pretty well for them, probably better than he ever did in the Township, to be honest. But yeah, I'd say, and then this is where Gillingham really kind of grew a foothold into the game and were actually being really dangerous. So they had another good chance. Akinde counters for Gillingham. He goes down their right hand side, so he's up against Stephen Ward. Ward kind of waits to put his challenge in, but mistimes the slide tackle, and Akinde's able to skip over the challenge and get away down the right hand side. Cuts the ball back towards Samuel, and it's kind of, I don't know if Holy gets there first or if Samuel gets there and Holy's almost on top of him, but he's sliding in. Both are sliding in, and the ball's just deflected away off the feet of Holy, I think it was, in the end. So really probably the clearest cut chance of the game to date, really, and it fell to Gillingham, to be honest. We do respond though. Good bit of play down the right hand side. Hawkins holds the ball up really well and is able to feed Teddy Bishop, who comes back in. He fires an effort straight at the young keeper. He was a little bit nervous, I think. I would have liked to have seen us test him a little bit more, but sadly we didn't have the quality of shots in the game. I think on another day we may have had 2 or 3 if we'd been a little bit more clinical and brave in front of goal. Gillingham once again coming back with a chance. A low cross slides across the face of the goal. Chambers is trying to block the cross, but he completely misses it. That leaves Alex McDonald in plenty of time and space in that vacated space left by Chambers, but he kind of rushes his chance, and I don't know if it's a shot or a pass, but he hits it straight at Chambers, who's lying prone on the floor in the 6-yard box, and Town managed to get it away. Now this is Town's best chance, I'd say, coming up. Town get I think it's a corner. I think it is a corner initially, and Bishop goes on a jinking run as he recovers the ball from when the corner's cleared. His effort is blocked as he has an effort on goal, and the ball comes loose, comes to Wolfie, and very similar to Patrick Bamford at the weekend against Aston Villa, tries to work an angle in a tight space, and he manages to get that little bit of space, and yeah, unfortunately he finishes like a centre half. Well, to be fair, it's not too far wide, but does just go over the apex of the crossbar and the post. So yeah, probably the best chance, and not really who you wanted it to fall to. Gillingham respond with their best chance probably since the Samuel one, and probably I'd say their best chance in the game until the dying embers. Turns really well in the box, and like us, probably not the man you want in the 6-yard box to have an effort at goal. It's really good effort, really good contact he makes, kind of on the half volley. Holy beats it away though. We'd see Armando Dobra coming on after this. He replaces Freddie Sears, who, as we said, had all the chances but just couldn't put them away. And yeah, not the best game for Freddie Sears. I gave him the benefit of the doubt when we get to the player ratings, but yeah, certainly didn't have his shooting boots on, let's put it that way. Hawkins again with some great play, manages to suck his man in, spins him when he's quite tight, and manages to shake him off. I think he's trying to lean on him and pull him back a little bit, but Hawkins is too strong, gets away on the right hand side of the box, plays it across for Edwards, who you think is destined to score, especially of the form he's been on this season, but somehow Ryan Jackson slides in to prevent Edwards getting an effort on goal. There's a few appeals for a penalty, but I don't really think it was there. I thought it was it did kind of look to have struck the hand of Jackson, and you know what the handball rules like this year. If we're in the Premier League, we probably would have got it, to be honest. But yeah, I thought Edwards should have scored that. He followed that up with another chance just after this as well, kind of a snapshot on the edge of the box, turning and volleying towards the goal. It was a good save by the keeper. But yeah, this spell here, and probably from the kickoff of the second half up until the moment we're going to talk about in a minute, it was really quite a laboured end-to-end spell of the game where both teams were pretty poor in the final third, to be honest. They were getting in the positions, but just the final ball or the effort on goal was either really poor or just nowhere near the target. It was a bit of a shame, really. I thought it was going to be destined for a 0-0. You look at it where there's two teams who can't really seemingly buy a goal. It looked like it was heading that way again. But to our surprise and to our relief, really, there's a goal for Town. And yeah, really good finish this. I think we're trying to work the ball, working angled, switching the ball from flank to flank. It eventually comes to Chambers. He gets a crossing from the right. It's cleared only as far as Edwards, who heads. He does really well. I thought he was going to bring it down and just shoot again or head towards goal, but he gets a good shout from Ward, I believe. He flicks it over to Ward, who's there on the edge of the left-hand side of the box, like he always seems to be. And Ward does really well here, I think, and it, probably to his credit, is his players as crucial to the goal than it is the actual finish from Teddy Bishop. He holds the ball and he waits patiently and then slides the perfect ball into Bishop, who manages to steer the ball home using the pace of the pass from Ward to guide that ball across the keeper and into the far corner. And yeah, really superb finish. Teddy Bishop continuing his great start to the season. He's had a few quiet games, but his goal scoring form is evident this season. And yeah, certainly I think on the balance of play and certainly the balance of possession, Town definitely deserve to be leading. But this is the point where Gillingham chuck everything at us and try and get back into the game. He didn't start the game. He'd been injured, and I think it was very much the last roll of the dice. Gillingham chuck on their towering striker, Van Dane Oliver. Not the greatest goal scorer, but he causes absolute havoc and wins everything in the air, seemingly. And they pile bodies into the box at every opportunity they get. Graham wins a free kick on the right-hand side for Gillingham. Bit of a poor foul from Edwards, but I think Graham does well to deceive the referee a little bit and win that free kick, and he whips the ball in and Oliver's arriving, but his effort hits the base of the post. And yeah, Town managed to hold on for yet another home win, and their 100% record at Portman Road in the league at least is safe for another match day. And yeah, thank God, because it was looking like it was heading for an absolute bang on 0-0 draw. I thought it was going to be before kick-off. Kind of dreading this game. I thought it was going to be an absolute waste of a tenner, to be honest. But no, fair play to the lads. They stuck at it. Don't think they were their best by any stretch of the imagination, but they dug in and got the result in the end. And yeah, I think thoroughly deserved. Steve Evans will attest otherwise. Some interesting post-match comments, to say the least. But yeah, it's always good to see us stick another one past Steve Evans. Has he ever beaten us? Correct me if he has. I don't think he ever has, but certainly in his time at Gillingham, they haven't even scored against us. So, well, long may that run continue, because I think we could actually get Steve Evans to physically implode, I think, if we keep beating him in such fashion. And hopefully we get a controversial win the next time, because I think that would leave him even more incensed. So, yeah, but I'm not going to overreact to one win. Perhaps we've overreacted a little bit to the two straight defeats beforehand, but it's a game we, certainly on the basis of our first half performance and generally the whole game, we had over 70% possession. It's a game you expect us to win, and if we'd come away with anything less than 3 points, we should have been ashamed of ourselves, to be honest. We had to win that game with the position we got ourselves in, and yeah, hopefully we can rebuild that solid start to the season we had and prove that maybe those two results were just a blip. But I think in reality, Gillingham is a side you'd expect to beat. I know they had a good finish to last season, but generally comparing the two clubs, they've gone through a lot of change themselves, haven't been on the best run of form coming into the game. You'd expect us to have won that game, and I think it's the same for our opponents on Saturday, which is Crewe Alexandra, another game you'd expect to win. The season is, well, I think it did come apart at the end there, but I think we were well and truly out of the promotion race when we were drawing with the likes of Wimbledon away from home. But I think these games as much as we've still got to win them and not underestimate teams. They don't tell you where you're going to finish at the end of the season. We've got games against promotion rivals coming up, or sides you'd expect to be up there, the likes of Sunderland. I think we've got Portsmouth in the FA Cup, haven't we? They're going to be the ones where you want to judge where this team is at. We expect to beat teams like Gillingham. We expect to beat teams like Crewe. But when we come to the likes of Sunderland and Portsmouth, Oxford, Peterborough, that's when you really test your mettle. And we'll have to see if we can follow this up again on Saturday, which we're going to talk about in a little while. But we'll just finish off with the player ratings as we always do. Remember, these are always out of 10. If you agree, disagree, want to make a comment, then shout at me on Twitter. That's what I'm there for. That's what Twitter's for, isn't it? So Thomas Holy gets an improvement this week. He gets a 7, I think. Still a few flappy-handed moments. I think we expect that now from Thomas Holy, but did well. I thought he distributed quite well at times as well, being able to get the ball out quickly, trying to start counter-attacks as well. But yeah, clean sheet. We'll take that any day of the week. Luke Chambers, 7. Fairly quiet game. Did well when he got forward down the right-hand side. Again, solid defensively. Didn't see a lot coming down that side. But quite a quiet game for him. But again, we'll reward him for a clean sheet with a 7. Luke Wolfenden, another one, he gets a 7. I think they struggled a little bit in the second half when legs got a little bit weary. But I thought another good performance from Luke Wolfenden and a good return to the starting 11. Mark McGuinness gets 7. I probably should give him an 8 for him bringing back the shorts and short socks combo with his massive legs as well. Very old school, looked very 1981 in our retro kit that we've gone for this season. But yeah, good performance for him in his debut. There's still times where I think he needs to communicate a little bit better, but he's going to build that rapport the more he plays with the lads. And for a first performance at men's senior football, he didn't look out of place, let's put it that way. Stephen Ward, I gave him a 6. I've praised him for his involvement in the goal, but I think as the second half went on, I think Gillingham kind of knew that his legs were getting a little bit weary. Obviously, he is an older man now, 35, isn't he now? So I think as the game went on and it was getting a little bit stretched, Stephen Ward was struggling a little bit. But still, I think we're going to expect a minimum of 6 out of 10 from Stephen Ward week in, week out for Town. And yeah, I'm glad to see him back in the starting 11. He's probably been one of my favourite players this season, which is a little bit odd. It's usually attacking players who steal the headlines, but I think Knudsen and Kenlock and all the loanies we've had in the meantime haven't really cut the mustard for me as a left back. And to see someone with a mature, composed performance week in, week out is something I'd really like to see. And I've been a big fan of Stephen Ward in the past when he was at Wolves, and yeah, I think he's a really good player, and I think that was a really shrewd signing from us this pre-season. Andre Dazelle, give him a 6. Not his best game. I think we come to expect his defensive work isn't always the best, and they got a little bit ragged in the second half when the game got a little bit stretched, but didn't do anything particularly wrong. Tried to be positive where he could be, and was making good runs forward as well. So yeah, we've seen better performances from Andre this season, but not a bad performance by any means. Teddy Bishop gave him a 7. Maybe a little bit harsh. Should have given him an 8. I think he was probably out of the midfield 3 and probably out of the attacking 3 as well. He was the most dangerous player we had on the pitch, looking likely to score if anyone was going to. But again, I think just when the game got a little bit stretched, I think he wasn't always mindful of his defensive duties. Same with Jack Lancaster. I gave him a 6. Not his best game. I think we've seen better from Jack, but he's only just come back from a really long spell out. It's going to take him a little bit more time to gain match sharpness. You know, I think this is only his second. Did he finish the game? I can't remember if he did. You know, he hasn't featured much, not from the start anyway. So, not his best game. He tried to be positive where he could, but yeah, I'm sure we'll see better from Jack Lancaster as the season goes on. Guion Edwards, gave him a 6. was very positive, did get in behind very well at times, but the final ball was very poor at times as well. Probably should have scored as well with that chance where Jackson got back. Maybe a little bit unlucky not to get a penalty, but I think his crossing wasn't great. And we haven't seen what we saw in other games where he was very ruthless and clinical and decisive about what he wants to do. I think at times he'd get into some good areas and hesitate and then deliver a really poor final ball, unfortunately. Ollie Hawkins, now I got pelters for this on Twitter. I've given him a 7. I'm going to defend Ollie Hawkins till the day he costs us a big match. But yeah, I think he did everything he could within his power to bring others into the game, particularly Teddy Bishop. I think they played very well off each other, did well to help out Sears, unlucky not to have an assist. The stats did get brought up that he didn't touch the ball very much and his pass completion rate wasn't very good. But I like Ollie Hawkins. I think he certainly is an asset, but I think the overwhelming worry that we all have is I just don't think he's going to score for us. I'd be very surprised if he scored more than 5 goals for us this season. But it's down to the others to help him out. If he's going to be playing week in, week out, he is an asset. He can bring others into the game. They've got to get up there and support him to best utilise the attributes that Ollie Hawkins brings to the team. Freddie Sears gave him a 6. Again, people said this was a little bit generous. I think his movement was particularly good in the first half. I think he did well to get into some dangerous areas and was a bit unlucky at times that good blocks from Gillingham defenders prevented his efforts going on target. Just a little bit wasteful in front of goal, isn't he? He doesn't always have his shooting boots on. Can be a good finisher on his day, but I think that day doesn't come very often nowadays, unfortunately. Then we'll go to the subs. So Armando Dobra, I'm a big fan of him, but I gave him a 5, unfortunately. I think it's that old footballing cliche that he was trying a little bit too hard at times during the game. Gave the ball away, ran down cul-de-sacs, made some poor decisions at times, which ended up turning the ball over and Gillingham being able to counter in some quite dangerous areas at times. So I think he's just eager to impress, isn't he? He rejected that loan spell and certainly believes in his own ability, but I think the more minutes he gets under his belt, the better. It's just got to be in times when maybe he can express himself without the worry of it costing us greatly later down the line. Emma Hughes gave him a 6. Did well when he came on. I thought didn't have a great involvement in the game, but shored us up a little bit. I think we were looking a little bit stretched in midfield, didn't have a foothold in the game for a little bit in the second half, so it was good to see kind of a mature presence and a more solid presence come into the midfield, which was a little bit lightweight. I think we can all agree there. And then Keenan Bennett didn't really get much time at all, did he? Bless him. I can't really give him a rating, but I think his time will come eventually. Maybe when we have a few cup games. We've got the EFL Trophy game next month, haven't we? And we've got Portsmouth in the FA Cup, as we mentioned. So maybe that'll be the time where he gets his start in the first team. As for Gillingham, gave them a 6 out of 10. I think they defended really well, despite being really poor going forward in the first half. Upped their game a little bit in the second half. I think they could feel a little bit hard done by that they didn't get a point out of the game. I know Steve Evans certainly thought they were... What did he say? I can't remember. He said the better side lost, which I don't think we agree with. I think a draw would have been a fair result on the balance of the chances created. You know, possession, it's a flattering stat, isn't it? At times, you can have 70% possession, but if you're passing it around your back for large portions of the game, that's always going to up your possession stat, isn't it? So, yeah, I think they did okay. I think they've had a tough time of late, a bit like us. Haven't scored in the last 3, have they? I don't think so. Yeah, they're in a bit of a barren spell at the moment. So I think it was probably an improved performance from them from what they've seen in the previous weeks. And yeah, maybe they're just in that run of form where the luck's not going their way at this moment in time. But yeah, that'll do us for the Gillingham game. Good to see us back to winning ways. I think we're up to third in the table. Not that it really matters at this early stage in the season, does it? Or seemingly in January, does it? Because we were top of the table then, and we all know how wrong it went from there on in. So, we'll move on to Saturday's opponents. And as we said, we're going to be joined by Stuart from the Railwaymen podcast. So let me know how you think this segment goes. I really appreciate your feedback on all matters of the podcast. It does really mean a lot. I try to deliver the best content for you. So if you want to hear more from opposition podcasters, then I'll try and get as many involved as possible. As I said, ITFC Analytics will always be involved in some way if we can get him on, if timings work out, or we're both free to get something together. But yeah, let us know what you think of Crewe Alexandria, and yeah, we'll hear from Stuart and see what he thinks.
Right, so it's an absolute first for the ITFC Unrestricted podcast. We're joined by a fellow podcaster, and this time it is Stuart from the Railwaymen podcast. How are you doing, Stuart?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, just recording just after a good win, so all happy with that. Happy with everything through at the moment.
Yeah, I wish we could say the same. This has been recorded on the eve, just as the game's basically finished against Lincoln City. So in this time, Stuart and the Crewe will have played Lincoln, so hopefully they've fared a little bit better than we have. So as I said, Stuart is from the Railwaymen podcast. So just tell us a little bit about yourself, Stuart, before we get into the meat and bones of football and talk.
Yep, same as you really. Set it up. I assume you set it up during lockdown and sort of like a little boredom of what you were doing, what you sort of get doing whilst you were locked in your house. Crewe had a really good season last year. I still think they probably would have won the league if the season had finished. They were top of the league, but went down to second on PPG, obviously coming behind Swindon. And I thought it was a shame there was no Crewe podcast to celebrate this. Obviously, the club celebrated it, but there was nothing for the fans. And I got to the thinking, well, why don't I do it then? If no one else is doing it, I'll do it. So we set up in June. We did a little season review. Did a couple of other episodes, and now we've set ourselves up on the regular Monday pods. We've had a couple of special guest episodes as well with a couple of ex-players. One of them, James Collins, who was academy player, first team assistant manager, now Wolves under-23 manager. Great sort of chat. Just really, really good. Really enjoying it so far.
That's good. Yeah, you're very similar to me, which is really good to see. It's really surprising Crewe haven't got a podcast. I guess when you sort of had your boom in the early sort of 2000s, it was a little bit before podcasts, unless you had a tape deck or a recording studio. It was probably a little bit before then.
There was one a couple of seasons ago, which I really enjoyed listening to, but it stopped. The guy, I'm not sure what happened, but the guy that was doing it didn't do it. And I was thinking about starting one up, but I didn't want to impose, and I sort of waited long enough to make sure it wasn't coming back. But fortunately, we've managed to get a couple of the guys that were on that as contributors. They're now a part of our team. So I sort of switch who's available each week. We've got one rule with the podcast. You can come on if you've seen the game. So if you haven't seen the game, I don't want you to come on, because nobody wants to listen to a podcast about a person who hasn't seen a football game. So that's
exactly. It's good to see you collaborating. There's so many Ipswich Town podcasts and contributors from all our years in the Championship. I think we have enough to do one for every day of the week. I think it's getting towards a 24-hour news network. So enough about podcasts. Let's get into the meat and gravy, which is football. So Crewe, as you said, quite rightly promoted last season. I've heard that a lot, that they could have gone on to win the league, but obviously it's a bit disappointing for yourselves. I think for Ipswich fans, we were very glad to end the suffering last year with the points per game, because we knew we were only probably going to be looking down as opposed to up. So just talk us a little bit about your season so far, how it's been going, as well as some players to look out for and the tactics to expect under David Artell.
Yeah, so I mean, the season so far, we had a really, really tough start to the season. With yourselves and Lincoln this coming week, we've just finished playing Doncaster and Sunderland away. So that's a run of 4 really hard games. We started with Charlton and Hull, 2 relegated teams. They were our first 2 games. And then we lost both of those, but we didn't disgrace ourselves. I think we've learned a little bit more about how to play a little bit cleverer. We beat a very poor MK Dons, and then we beat a very poor Wigan. And then last Saturday, we got our first draw. We drew at home to Blackpool. They weren't as bad as we were expecting them to be. They actually turned up. And because their manager is a coach who spent over 25 years at Crewe, Neil Critchley, he had a game plan, completely nullified us. They got a very good point that possibly should have won, maybe. And then we went up to Sunderland, put a really poor performance up at the Stadium of Light on Tuesday. Lost 1-0. Didn't get going at all. It was only ever going to be 1-0 or 2-0. We just didn't have any chances. We didn't get going. And then it looked like the same today at the start of the Doncaster game. They were all over his first 5 minutes. 10 minutes, we started to grow in confidence, got a goal on the break. They immediately scored about 90 seconds later. And then we've scored a free kick with about 15 minutes to go today, 20 minutes to go today. And held on for the win. Really good, positive result. I don't think many Crewe fans were expecting 3 points out of away at Sunderland, away at Doncaster this week. I'm not sure how many were expecting this week. Like I say, games against Ipswich and Lincoln. But I don't think many Crewe fans are going to be too disappointed so long as the progress is there. I don't think many of us think that we'll be in the relegation zone, but I don't think many of us expect us to be near the top either. I think it's sort of consolidation year. In terms of players, there's lots and lots of academy players, as you probably would expect from a Crewe team. We've currently got a group of 5 who are probably in their last year and a half, and they'll be looking to move on and up. Both our fullbacks, Perry Ng, Harry Pickering, right back, left back. We've got a central midfielder, holding midfielder, Ryan Wintle, and our attacking left winger, Charlie Kirk. They're all first team regulars, and they are probably on their way out, on their way to a higher league. We've got another centre mid, Tommy Lowry. He actually played against Doncaster today for the first time. First start since January. He's been out with a hernia injury. He's the 5th of that group who are going to go on to become better players. But what I think is really encouraging at the moment with Crewe is that they've got the next step of academy players coming through already, whilst the older generation are still there. So our goalkeeper, Will Jaskalainen, you might recognise the name. That is Yussi's son. We've got a centre-back, Luke Offord, who has played about 15 first-team games, looks like a seasoned pro. He never makes he scored an own goal against Sunderland, but completely not his fault. Never puts a foot wrong. And we've got Luke Murphy back, who obviously was an academy player. We sold for £1 million to Leeds. He's come back on a free this summer, so he's settled into the middle. Josh Lundstrom, Ollie Finney, centre mid competitors, Owen Dale, right wing. So we've got a really, really good academy set up, as always, with Crewe. But what's really good with Dave Artell, the manager, is he's recruited really well. We've got Omar Beckles and Mika Mandron. Now, in the past, there's no way these players would have signed for Crewe. Like, they just wouldn't have thought that they could pay the wages, and they just wouldn't have thought they were competitive enough. So I think you won't find many Crewe fans who have got anything bad to say about Dave Artell and the management at the moment. Probably a little bit different to Ipswich and your manager. I think the fan base at Crewe are almost 100% behind the management and Kenny Lunt, our assistant, who again is an academy player, played for the first team before going on to play in the Championship with Sheffield Wednesday. So yeah, there's definitely a philosophy at Crewe, and I think you'll find most Crewe fans are 100% behind that, and they're quite happy with how things are going at the moment. In terms of formation, it won't be anything other than 4-3-3. That's the Crewe way. That's Dave Artell's way. That's what we'll play.
Awesome. So it looks like we're going to be matching up with another team who's playing a 4-3-3. You'll find that out against Lincoln as well. They like a 4-3-3 as well. But so you're expecting consolidation this year. I'm really surprised that Crewe haven't been mentioned as much as I think Plymouth and Swindon have very much stole the headlines in terms of the teams that have come up. There's a lot of talk about Richie Wellens and Ryan Lowe, how they're playing, and I think they have started the season very well. But I think a lot of people are writing Crewe off, and as you said, I think the difference for you this time is that you've gone through that period where you've still got some really seasoned now academy graduates in your starting 11 who are very experienced, but you've got the next generation coming through. I think a lot of times it's just been an end of an era and you've had to restart all over again.
So one thing I would say, you're spot on there, is we sort of talk about like the process at Crewe. We'll have these good academy players. They'll come in and we'll throw them in when they're not quite ready. They're raw. And Crewe will give them the opportunity to make mistakes and to learn whilst they're playing in the first team, whereas lots of clubs don't do that. There's too much pressure on results for that. And at the moment, we're at the end of one cycle. So the academy players have been in, they've learned, they've gotten better, they've got a promotion under their belts. We're currently doing okay in League One, a league higher than last season. But I think, like I said, because of the fact that we are at the end of that cycle, with the other cycle already starting, we're possibly in a better position. We have got players to come in to replace these players as and when they do move on. We've got 2 young fullbacks who would ordinarily, in a Crewe squad, would probably have already become first team regulars, but because Perry NG, Harry Pickering are still there, they're still waiting for their opportunity. So yeah, it's just an optimistic time for a Crewe fan at the moment, which has not always been the case. We've had about 10 years of just depressing results, depressing football, not really capturing the heights of the championship days. But there's lots to be confident about at the moment with Crewe.
That's good to hear. It's nice to hear some positivity and optimism in a football fan. It's a far cry from Ipswich Town these days. But,
well, I mean, even if we lose to Ipswich on Saturday, you won't get many Crewe fans complaining. If they turn up, they play well, then Crewe fans tend to be happy. You know, we're a fairly realistic bunch.
I think that's a lesson we could all learn as Ipswich Town fans. I'm interested to see Perry and G. I'm glad you pronounced it for me, because I was wondering how you pronounce that.
NG. So it's just the letters.
Yeah, because we signed Kane Vincent-Young last summer, and I believe your coach came out and said that Perry NG is the best right back in League Two, and he was very surprised that we didn't take him up on an offer. So we're very much looking forward to seeing him. I've heard good things about Charlie Kirk as well. So it's going to be a really competitive game, and I think, as you asked me for a score prediction, I know we've got a game in the middle there which may alter our predictions as the week goes on, but I'll ask you for a score prediction as well, Stuart.
Let's go with, I was going to say 1-1, but I think I can be more positive. I'm going to go 2-1 to the Alex, I think.
It's going to be interesting. We've both gone 2-1, but yeah, thank you very much for that, Stuart. And you are the debutant on, I think it's quite rightly, as we've got a Crewe fan on, they like to give young up-and-coming podcasters their first team berth, and Crewe like to give young first-team players their debut. So it feels right that we've given you that debut. So thank you very much for carrying on, Stuart. And good luck on Saturday. Hopefully, not too much luck.
I'll say good luck for the rest of the season, but not Saturday. Cheers, Mark. Thank you.
Lovely job. Thank you very much, mate.
So that'll do us then, guys. Thank you very much for listening to this week's mini match pod. Good to see us back to winning ways, isn't it? Always a little bit of a weight off your shoulders. It makes the week go a little bit better, I think. Makes the weekend certainly a lot more, greets the weekend with a bit more anticipation, doesn't it? We're always looking forward to the weekend a little bit more when we won the previous game in midweek. But yeah, it's going to be a tough afternoon against Crewe, I think. We'll be back on Sunday to talk about that. So make sure you check out the regular Sunday episode. Like, follow, subscribe, all that nonsense that all good podcasters and YouTubers bang on about. So yep, until Sunday, enjoy the rest of your week. Hopefully we have a good Saturday, and come on you Blues. Thank you for watching or listening to this week's ITFC Unrestricted podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Deezer and TuneIn. If you haven't already, make sure you follow, download or subscribe so you never miss an episode wherever you are listening. A new episode will be live on all platforms at 6 p.m. every Sunday. For more immediate reaction to all the latest town news, give me a follow on Twitter at rskid26. Go on, you know you want to. Until next week, I've been your host, Mark Beck. So take what you need, be on your way, and keep on following town.